is going on? It's like a repeat. Can someone hear a repeat on this? Well, thank God that sound is gone now. Doesn't come over. Check this out, people. big guy. Doing well. I was there yesterday, and it was pretty insane, to say the least. There's about 60 people there. Wasn't that cool? But I was also here. Look how close I got to this guy.
Mr. Speaker. I'm reading a poem by Wendell Berry called A Vision. If we will have the wisdom to survive, to stand like slow-growing trees on a ruined place, renewing, enriching it. If we will
Oh, my finger's getting better. The nails slowly getting off. The nail is good. How's the volume, Shelley? Can you hear everything even?
The river will run clear as we never knew it, and over it, birdsong like a canopy. On the levels of the hills will be green meadows, stop bells in noon shade. On the steeps where greed and ignorance cut down the old forest, an old forest will stand, its rich leaf fall drifting on its roots. Lanes of forgotten springs will have opened, families will be singing in the fields. In their voices they will hear a music risen out of the ground. They will take nothing from the ground they will not return, whatever the grief at parting. Memory, native to this valley, will spread over it like a grove, and memory will grow into legend, legend into song, song into sacrament. The abundance of this place, the songs of its people and its birds,
Turn this thing off.
health and wisdom and indwelling light. This is no paradisal dream. Its hardship is its possibility.
This is we spend a half an hour like I gotta put this on.
Introduction of bills.
Minister of Finance.
I have the honor to present a message from Her Honor, the Lieutenant.
Check 1 2 check.
Her Honour, the Lieutenant Governor transmits here with Bill number 8, Intituled Carbon Tax Amendment Act 2025 and recommend the same to the Legislative Assembly. Minister.
I move the bill be introduced and read a first
Can
time
you hear
now.
my voice well?
Honourable Speaker, I introduce Bill 8, the Carbon Tax Amendment Act 2025. The bill amends the Carbon Tax Act to cancel all scheduled rate increases and set the carbon tax rate to $0 per tonne of emissions as of April 1st, 2025. This will effectively end the consumer carbon tax in British Columbia. As a consequential, the bill also amends the Income Tax Act to establish that no climate action tax credit payments will be issued for the benefit year beginning in July 2025 and every year following. This will effectively end the climate action tax credit. People will get the final payments in April. This bill also includes various amendments to the Carbon Tax Act that will help facilitate the removal of the tax. For example, a new refund and crediting mechanism for retail dealers of natural gas will come into effect on April 1st, 2025, and retroactive regulation-making authorities will allow us to end certain administrative requirements and designations as of April 1st, 2025. Finally, the bill includes consequential amendments to the Motor Fuel Tax Act. These amendments will ensure that designations under the Motor Fuel Tax Act are not affected by changes to designations under the Carbon Tax Act. They will also allow us to amend refund rates for the International Fuel Tax Agreement licenses to reflect the end of the carbon tax. Mr. Speaker, it is the intention of this government to seek your approval to allow the bill to advance through all stages this day.
Member, the question is first reading of the bill. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those who oppose, division has been called.
Wow, he's got a cool button. You should be allowed to turn everything off, the volume off to everyone, all of the public. Members have been called to the chat. All right, friends, so this just means that they're going to stand and vote. There was no objections, though. It was unanimous that it went through. So why are they doing this? Unless I didn't hear, did anyone hear them? The last NDP, they paid. I know, it's crazy. And if you heard in what she said, there was some things that were going to make it easy for the politicians to just push things through. That's what I definitely heard her say. Don't know the exact words that she used, but that usually means someone's getting paid more money. And there's less control of the House or the people. Yeah, she said them, Shelley. I have to have my espresso. I just don't feel good. I was at the Jagmeet Singh event yesterday. It was a opening up his campaign office barbecue. There was 80 people there, maybe, maybe between 60 and 100 people, more like 70 to 90. What a joke. Yeah. Not sure what that means, but I'm kind of swaying if Alberta left. I definitely, if we had to vote to leave, I would leave too. I wouldn't want to be landlocked. Unless we became our own, but God knows we have enough natural resources to be a pretty strong, viable country. And we don't have enough people to really have huge infightings and stuff for wars and crap. Straight facts. We've had this carbon tax, this consumer tax, for a couple of years, though, in BC. So, I don't know. There's John Rustad. I guess he was taking a pee. No, looks at his phone. Oh, that's not him. Looks like there's a bunch of these people missing. Harmon's there. Eleanor is there. Where's John Rustad? He is not there. Where's Mr. Beebe? Does he sit there? There's David Eby right there. It really doesn't... the quality is auto. The quality of the video is auto. What do you mean 7 years? We've had it for 7 years, the tax. They're both in Prince George. David Eby and John Rustad are both in Prince George today. No, he's right there. Yeah, Carbon Fast is the first in BC. Yeah, there's David Eby. He just came in and sat down right there. And John Rustad. There he is. John Rustad just came in. So those two guys were outside the office. Interestingly enough, they were the only two outside, and then they just walked in also together. See, it's all backroom deals. Always is, always will be. It's pretty hard to watch this. They have these, like, all of a sudden... Let me see. Oh, wow, the organizers for the Special Olympics are coming out in July. So, what's this? Liberals confirm Beach's candidacy isn't official. So, for Caribou, so Chris Beach, up in Prince George, former Burns Lake mayor, formally introduced himself as the acclaimed Liberal candidate for Caribou Prince George on Friday during a noon-hour event at a downtown restaurant. However, the Liberal Party does not currently recognize Beach as their candidate. Man, it's just a mess, girl. Forestry reform. Oh, the forestry. I hope more shit comes back to us. We need to... This is insane. How much time is absolutely wasted in these places? Can you tell me how come they waste so much time? I've watched this before, like 30 times in the past 5 years, and I just can't believe how much of it. It's a waste of time. Here we go. Yeah, but when do you think that Surrey gets... Surrey must have to come up with some money themselves, too. You guys need a 4-lane highway through everywhere. So you can have more immigrants up in Prince George.
Members, we are dealing with the first reading of Bill number 8. Madam Clerk. Yeah. Of course, it's Monday morning. Exactly. Those in favor, please rise or indicate.
Everyone.
Thank you. Be seated. Those who oppose, please rise or indicate. Thank you. Be seated. Madam Clerk.
For those on.
Yeah. Members on line, you will do it.
MLA Hepner.
Standards Amendment.
Members online, please turn your audio and video on.
MLA Hepner.
I vote aye.
Are you kidding me?
Minister Lohr.
I vote aye.
MLA Rochford.
I vote aye.
How many people are in this room?
MLA Tepner.
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Those voting aye, Lohr, Anderson, Blatherick, Elmore, Senner, Toporowski, B. Anderson, Neal, Osborne, Brar, Davidson, Callon, Parmar, Gibson, Baer, Chandra Herbert, Wickens, Kang, Morissette, Sandhu, Krieger, Chant, Lejeunesse, Choi, Rochford, Higginson, Rutledge, Popham, Dick, Sharma, Farnworth, Eby, Bailey, Begg, Green, Whiteside, Boyle, Ma, Young, Malcolmson, Chow, Glumac, Aurora, Shaw, Phillip, Deere, Sturko, Kindy, Millibar, Warbus, Rustad, Banman, Cooner, Halford, Hartwell, Neufeld, Van Popta, Dew, Gasper, Neufeld, K. Neufeld, Day, Block,
Bangu, Peyton, Boltby, Chan, Tour, Hepner, Giddens, Rattay, Davis, McGuinness, Lux, Damer, Maz, Tepper, Mock, Wilson, Clare, Williams, Lowen, Dhaliwal, Dirksen, Chapman, McCall, Valorat, Keeley, Armstrong, and Brody, 89. Those against, Bodrow, 1.
Motion is carried. Members, given the precedence of the House for requests for accelerated consideration of bill pursuant to Standing Order 81, the House will be in recess while the bill is distributed to all members. Once the House is called back to order, the Chair will receive submissions from the government and the opposition for accelerated consideration of Bill number 8. The House will thereafter again stand in recess while the Chair prepares the ruling. So we'll be in a recess for a few minutes, and we are going to be distributing the bill now.
Canfor Mills moved to, it comes down to two things, Shelley. It comes down to the federal and the provincial fighting. It comes down to the fact that we have so much freaking land. A good friend of mine works for a buddy that has contracts up in the mills, the chip mills, the wood chip mills. I guess what they do with all the rough wood or the bad wood is they cut them up into small chips and they build these huge piles, and these pellet piles get put in trucks, and the trucks go to Prince Rupert, and they get sent over to England for heat. And my buddy gets paid like $40 an hour to stand there with a hose for 8 hours in the summer and spraying them with water so that they don't light on fire. EB is a green lawyer, absolutely. EB's a meathead. I mean, EB's not a meathead. He's conflicted. Because in his small area where he lives, and his small group of friends, they're all green, and he's got to fight 98% of the population of BC. I don't think he was voted in either, was he? Was David Eby voted into his position in BC politics? So John Horgan, of course, announced his resignation in 22. The NDP leadership race was held to choose his successor. Eby was the only remaining candidate after his main opponent. Anjali Aprudulia was disqualified. Why was he disqualified? Violation of rules. Irregular membership signups. Third-party influence. He just broke all the rules, like the big ones too. Yeah, he took over Horgan's place, but there had to be a leadership race, and the only other guy that was going to fight Eby got blasted out because he broke all the rules. He's a carny job. David Eby is a carny joke. But we did have, we did get voted in, though. Wow, Chat GTP is old. Isn't that wild, eh? So I know it's there's a whole bunch of things going on. I met the gentleman in Surrey that lost his riding by we don't know 20 votes or something like that. But in that area also there was group homes that were being run by an NDP person. Then they were just making all the votes yay for NDP in their homes, and there were like 25 people in the home, and there's 25 adults and that are developmentally delayed in a home. It doesn't make any sense. Use bullshit. I don't understand. Our court systems are backed up. I mean, you know what I want to find out? This is what I want to find out. And let's see if ChatGTP has it. How many prisoners are there currently held in British Columbia provincial jail institutions? And how many spots are available? Period. I don't think I asked that question very well. Yeah, okay, so here, check this out, right? As of, are you ready for this? Check this out. Okay, so there's the provincial courts, and there's a bunch of provincial jails, and there's the federal jails. I'm not feeling very well. So in the province, there's currently 1,550 inmates, which is 30% lower than pre-pandemic levels, which means there's still room for another 800 prisoners to be jailed. What about you? Let's see if ChatGPT can tell me. Yeah, there's 11 kids in jail. One was just a second. What about the jail in Victoria? So the Prince George jail has space for 24 youth. The Vancouver jail has spaces for 90 youth. No, the kid one. I think the youth jail in Victoria, I think it's about 50 beds. How many beds did the Victoria jail have? Yeah. Yeah, so if you are charged with a crime, and I know this through past experiences, 2 years minus a day will be provincial time. As soon as a judge orders you 2 years plus a day, it goes to federal time. So you'll go to a federal pen. The jail in this is just the youth jails now I'm talking about. So the Victoria Youth Custody actually only had 12 beds, which I don't think is true. They probably had 24 because I'd been there many times. I've probably been there 20 times, 20 times. It was bigger than 12. It had to have been. The jail in Vancouver had 90 beds, and the jail in Prince George had 24. So that's 140 beds. So the youth pen is 140 beds. Okay? There's 11 kids in the province in jail right now. 11. That's crazy. You know, when I worked in my job as a foster parent, here we go back again. When I worked in my job as a foster parent,
Members, I call the House now to order.
probably had 100 kids in the jail.
I will now recognize the Government House Leader to make his application and will also receive response from submission from the opposition. Government House Leader.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise to request a ruling from the Chair
only got
pursuant
24
to
beds.
Standing Order 81 that Bill 8 advance through all stages this day. The application of Standing Order 81 following the introduction of a bill is uncommon. It is to be used sparingly and by necessity in this chamber in urgent and extraordinary occasions. As is frequently the case, Honourable Speaker, you and this House may seek guidance regarding the interpretation and application of our standing orders from parliamentary practice in British Columbia. Standing Order 81 is considered at page 260 of the 5th edition. I would note that Erskine May notes there are numerous precedents in the United Kingdom House where bills after first reading have passed through all remaining stages in one day, and in cases of extreme urgency, the stages of finance bills have been accelerated. Chapter 33. I would hold, Honourable Speaker, that this legislation is tax legislation and constitutes a Ways and Means motion that are both referred in Erskine May and in the House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 3rd edition, our Canadian equivalent. Ways and Means motions are concerning the budgetary policy of the government. As such, Mr. Speaker, government is declaring that this is a matter of confidence. Here in BC, the practice of Standing Order 81 is refined by rulings from Speaker Barnes in 1996, BC Journals, April 26, 1996, page 9. Speaker Hartley in 2000, BC Journals, April 2nd, 2009, page 92 and 93. Speaker Richmond in 2004, BC Journals, April 28, pages 92 and 93. And the most recent ruling, which I will focus most of my comments on, made by Speaker Barasoff in 2009, BC Journals, January 17, 2009, page 156 to 157. It seems clear that there are two tests that must be met. The first is that the legislation must be focused and specific to the circumstances at hand, and secondly, those circumstances must be urgent or extraordinary. Speaker Barasoff quotes in page 13416 of the BC Journals, "The bill must be sufficiently limited in scope to qualify under Standing Order 81, and, quote, the second test, which applies under Standing Order 81, is that the matter involves an urgent or extraordinary occasion."
Bullshit.
In addressing these two tests, Mr. Speaker, I wish to refer you and the House three documents that I will submit to you as part of my submission. I submit and ask you to consider Federal OIC 2025-0446 and OIC 2025-0447, dated March 15, 2025, and associated forms signed by the Prime Minister upon the recommendation of the Federal Minister of Finance and the Federal Minister of the Environment. I will quote from those documents. Her Excellency, the Governor-General in Council, on the recommendation of the Minister of Finance, makes the annexed regulations amending Schedule 2 to the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act and the fuel charge regulations under Sections 166 and 168 of the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, and Her Excellency, the Governor-General in Council, on the recommendation of the Minister of the Environment, makes the annexed regulations amending the output-based pricing system regulations under Sections 192 and 193 of the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, and these regulations amend Schedule 2 to the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act and the fuel charge regulations in order to set applicable fuel charge rates for all types of fuel and combustible waste to zero after March 31st, 2025, and regulations amending the output-based pricing system, the OBPS regulations, in order to 1, ensure that on-site transportation emissions currently reported under the OBPS continue to be reported, and 2, shorten the compliance period for voluntary facilities where designation as a covered facility is cancelled by the Minister in 2025 to align the compliance period for these facilities to end when the fuel charge rate is set to $0. Honourable Speaker, these two OICs change the nature of the federal backstop put in place by the federal government, and our government has promised to act immediately once the federal government removed the consumer carbon pricing imposed by the federal government. The third document that I will submit is a petition from the official opposition that calls on this government to, quote, scrap the carbon tax. The petition goes on to read, and I quote, "We demand the government scrap the carbon tax immediately." Well, Honourable Speaker, without getting into the debate on the legislation, we are moving to do just that. This legislation, Honourable Speaker, is narrow in scope. It sets the legislated increase to $0 and changes the consumer carbon tax to $0. Concurrently, it also amends the Income Tax Act to eliminate the Climate Action Tax Credit. On the urgency test, Honourable Speaker, this is the first instance that this government has had to address these changes, as the House was adjourned by order on March 13th, and this is the first instance that we have been able to table this legislation. Honourable Speaker, if you were not to grant the application of passing this legislation, that would cancel the proposed increase, which was previously required by federal law. Fuel producers are looking to this House to provide certainty, and swift passage of this legislation ensures that fuel producers are collecting the correct tax rate, and one that the federal government no longer requires to be paid. Honourable Speaker, if your ruling is in the affirmative, I recognize that such a ruling does not constitute a conclusion of the will of this House. As such, government does not seek to curtail debate on this legislation. Government has been clear to the public and to the opposition parties that this legislation would be tabled today, and advance notice of this application was given to the opposition House leaders. In keeping with the above, if your ruling is in the affirmative, I will move a motion to allow the House to sit beyond the fixed hour for adjournment of the House until such time that the House may hopefully consider and approve all stages of consideration of Bill 8 and receive the Lieutenant Governor to grant royal assent to this bill, thereby ensuring that all members who wish to debate this bill at all stages are provided ample opportunity to do so. I also recognize that other standing orders remain in place, and it is not government's intention to displace other business of this House, namely afternoon routine business and other items that government may call. I would also like to inform the House that concurrent to debate on Bill 8, I also intend to call items of debate in both Houses, including ministerial estimates. The remaining stages of Bill 6 and royal assent is scheduled at 5:30 for several bills waiting for her honour. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, members. Before I recognize the opposition member, I again want to caution members that when we are dealing with submissions made pursuant to Standing Order 81, they must be strictly relevant to the two factors prescribed in the Standing Order, being urgency and extraordinary circumstances. Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the only thing extraordinary about this is how long it took the government to actually bring Bill 8 forward, Mr. Speaker. It is certainly not urgent, or should not have needed to be urgent, had this government operated with any sense of urgency for the first 4 weeks that we sat in this legislature, including when the budget was presented. The government House Leader brought forward several dates around March 15th when there was an OIC signed by the federal government. I would point out, however, that every federal politician that would reasonably be seen to be the Prime Minister or the next Prime Minister, from January 31st moving forward, had talked about removing the consumer carbon tax should they become Prime Minister, including our current Prime Minister. That was the first day that he started speaking about removing the consumer carbon tax. Yet you spring forward to the beginning of March, when our budget was presented, not only did this government not bring forward legislation like this with an enabling clause to allow for things to be done by OIC, so we could have actually debated this very technical bill over the last 4 weeks in this chamber. In fact, they've presented a budget that showed an ever-increasing carbon tax over the next 3 years, fully expecting, despite what all the federal leaders were talking about, of removing the consumer carbon tax, actually budgeting for and projecting consumer carbon tax to continue on in British Columbia. Yeah. I would also point out that the government had it within their powers to have recalled the legislature any time over the last 2 weeks to actually deal with Bill 8. But yet, here we are jammed up as an opposition, duly elected members of this legislature, to try to deal with a very technical piece of legislation as it relates to charts and fees around carbon tax. Carbon tax bill itself is 83 pages of legislation, Mr. Speaker. This is another 6 pages of legislation. I would point out that we have all sorts of government taxation policy right now in front of this chamber that is retroactive. In fact, in Bill 5, which is the Budget Measures Implementation Act, which carbon tax was not mentioned in and any changes made there, we have Section 3, January 1st, 2013, retroactive clause, Section 4, January 1st, 2018, Section 7, January 1st, 2022, Section 8, March 28th, 2023, Section 9, January 1st, 2024. We have some into the early parts of 2025, Section 35, January 1st, 2019, Section 38, January 1st, 2019. This government has had a long history of bringing in retroactive tax changes around lots of things to do with income tax and other taxes in this. I would also point out that part of the reason we're here is this government hard-baked in the increases on a yearly basis a couple budget measure implementation bills ago to match the march to $170 a tonne. At which time, about this time last year, the Premier was very emphatic that BC would continue to go to $170 a tonne, regardless of what happened provincially, and we have a budget that bears that out. It was only in the fall the Premier changed his tune, and it was only recently that this bill got presented. Again, a technical bill that, despite this, and despite very, very public proclamations by the Premier last week that, in fact, this would be happening, there was no providing of the bill in advance to opposition to actually properly vet and read through and figure out exactly what is or is not going to happen, both on the consumer and the industrial side of carbon tax. We are essentially left to spend a couple of hours trying to quickly cobble together a cognizant response to something that has been in the public conversation for quite some time. If this is the government's attempt at trying to exhibit urgency to a piece of legislation, it sorely misses the mark. Again, Standing Order 81 is meant to be for those issues that are of extreme urgent matters, not for government incompetence on bringing forward a legislative schedule of things for this House to work on. We could have very easily, over the last 4 weeks, been dealing with provisions in Bill 8 that would have actually had a commencement clause at the very end that said, as federal laws change, we, by order in council, would allow ourselves to make the changes, and we would understand what those changes are. It's quite ironic, Mr. Speaker, that we are talking about these potential powers needed to be with the government, given the walk back on Bill 7 that we've recently seen in terms of the all-encompassing powers, given how ham-fisted this has come forward with carbon tax. In short, when you look at the dates, when you look at the precedents, when you look at legislation on the floor of this House right now to do with budget measures and implementation, and you layer that with the actual budget document we have, and the total disregard by this Premier and this government to take any substantive action on carbon tax until the very literally 11th hour of the conversation nationally, this is an urgent matter because the government has created an urgency to it, not because they did not have the time to reasonably foresee what was going to be happening, nor the legislative tools available to them to try to be able to react to that. I would suggest to you that the fact that the government has now fumbled this attempt would indicate that we do not need to have Standing Order 81 enacted today. We need to let this legislation flow through to its natural course in this chamber. The government House Leader insists that everyone in this chamber shall be afforded the opportunity to speak to Bill 8. Well, with half-hour time limits, Mr. Speaker, and an opposition of 41, official opposition of 41, that'd be 20 and a half hours. We'd be well past April 1st by the time this bill got to committee stage, let alone debate, ending on second reading. So the actions and the words, once again, of this government do not match what Section 81 or Standing Order 81 is supposed to represent. By that measure, if it is critical this be passed by midnight tonight to meet the April 1st deadline, what the government has failed to tell us yet again in an open and transparent way is that they would be willing to bring in a guillotine motion later today to ensure that all debate was cut off in time for the Lieutenant Governor to get back here before midnight to be able to make this law. In that case, I guess it would be fitting, given that there's been a lot of talk about Henry VIII clauses recently from this government, that they would be bringing forward a guillotine motion later that they refuse to acknowledge today. The arguments by the government simply are not to be believed in terms of the urgency, the timelines involved, and the fact that by the government House Leader's own admission, everyone in this chamber shall be afforded the full right to fully speak to and fully question a bill that is supposed to be passed by April 1st, which is midnight tonight. So, Mr. Speaker.
Boom! He's pissed.
There does not seem to be the urgency. This has been something the government could have brought forward to this chamber over the previous 4 weeks. They could have recalled us over the last 2 weeks. I do look forward to it to being a confidence vote, however, Mr. Speaker, because the Premier seems to be angling and wanting an election to happen sooner rather than later. So I guess it will be interesting when we ultimately get to a final vote on Bill 8 to see whether we're into our own provincial election or not. So thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Leader of the third party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. So we've been informed that this is a matter of urgency, that the government has no choice but to bypass standard legislative process to pass this bill in a single day. Honourable Speaker, the third party caucus is not satisfied with the reasons given. Leaving aside the issue of predictability going back to September of last year, British Columbia was the first province in Canada to introduce a carbon tax. For 17 years, we recognized that our actions have consequences, that corporations and people should not be able to use the atmosphere for disposal of their carbon pollution for free. Mr. Speaker, the Green Caucus can't support passing this in one day. Carbon emissions are an existential threat to our future. As such, this piece of legislation has consequences for the future of the planet. Consequences for millions of British Columbians who rely on quarterly carbon rebates, and consequences for the solvency of the province, with $2.8 billion expected to be raised this financial year through the carbon tax. This huge impact means that as opposition members, we need time to seek answers from the government about how they intend to resolve these issues, how we can be assured that polluters will pay, as promised, that families will continue to receive rebate funds they rely on, how the government will meet a $2.8 billion gap. We don't consider that meeting the convenience of fuel producers or aligning with other provinces is sufficient grounds for urgency. We've seen previously the good that has come from BC being a pioneer and an outlier, one with a green tech sector where the lowest income people receive support, where we can be world leaders. 17 years, Honourable Speaker, and a single day to scrap this legislation. Why not take the time that's required to bring forward a well-thought-out substitute for carbon price signals, revenue, and rebates? We also note the precedent for a removal of government revenue, which is actually a diminishment of supply, not requiring a royal recommendation and not being considered a matter of urgency or confidence. This bill could be introduced as a private member's bill. There's no requirement for it to proceed in this manner. Mr. Speaker, we do not support moving this bill under Standing Order 81 urgency. We would ask that you do not support it. Thank you.
Thank you, member. I don't see anyone else.
They're all over. Oh, I don't like this.
Seeing no further speakers from the floor to speak on this motion, I thank all the members who have spoken on this for their thoughtful submissions. In accordance with the practice of the House for such an application, the House will continue. I'll take a recess. Myself, the chair, will step out to look at all the submissions made by the members and make my ruling. In the meantime, I'll ask the Deputy House Leader, Deputy Speaker, to continue the debate in the House on the morning agenda of the Monday morning. Madam Clerk.
Private members' time.
I think they're just taking some time off. He's going to go read some documents. There goes you hear my washer. The fix is in. The fix is in, my friends. The fix is in. I just like how right at the beginning, everyone was in the room except for EB and Rustad, and then all of a sudden they came in together, like they walked in together from separate doors. Oh, hey, we're going. You're going through that door. I'll go in through that door, so no one knows what were we doing in the back room. I don't know, man. Oh my Lord. So this Allen chick here, she's a cop, right? Do you know her, Shelley? Have you heard about her? She's a police officer from Surrey. And, you know, she talks a big talk.
All right, well, we're about to get underway here. Ask everybody to please
settle down,
clear out if you're not going to be joining us, and call the committee back in session.
Pants that are like,
and I'd like to recognize the member for North Island.
Mrs. Speaker, on March 13th, at the inpatient psych unit at Vancouver General Hospital, a nurse was strangled unconscious by a patient. It took several minutes for the security staff to get from the emergency department to the psych unit. The nurse, who was new at her job, had to be dragged away by her colleagues. On November 2024, a 48-year-old male patient stabbed a student nurse at VGH with a pocket knife. Fortunately, her injuries were non-life-threatening. It was not in the too distant past when an internal memo was circulated at one of the BC hospitals that if a knife had a blade under 4 inches, it was not to be confiscated. If you know a nurse, you know she or he has a story about verbal abuse, being spit at, punched, bit. Our nurses have had their hair pulled or sexually harassed and have hospital equipment and even urine thrown at them. There have been over 1,800 WorkSafe BC claims of workplace violence in their health sectors in 2023. And the figures don't even capture physicians who are not employees of the health authorities. We all agree that our nurses are everyday heroes.
Oh, come on.
And that's how you get thanked with assault, violence, and trauma.
That's not what a way to explain
Nurses who experience and report violence often end up having to take the violence prevention program, which makes them seem like they're the problem. Often nothing happens to the perpetrators of that violence.
Nada.
Imagine being asked, what could you have done differently to prevent this incident from happening?
The nurses
Ultimately,
are being
most
punished.
healthcare workers choose not to report their incident unless they're severely injured. Weapons are becoming common in hospitals. Back in January in Port Moody, Eagle Ridge Hospital, a man pulled out a machete and made a very aggressive gesture while screaming and uttering threats. The man was under court-ordered weapons ban at the time of the incident. According to the Nurses Union, 39% of nurses have been exposed to weapons.
I'm gonna put
No
this
wonder
on my
over
channel.
32% of nurses quit before the age of 35. Violence against nurses and hospital staff happens most often in the ER. This is not surprising. There's a perfect storm brewing there.
Always happens in the emergency room.
Many people still can't find GPs, so ER wait times are anywhere from 8 to 18 hours.
They let the homeless drug
This
addicts
type of
sleep in the waiting room.
Wait time challenges the best of
They're
us.
asking for the problem.
Illicit substances
happen.
has been decriminalized, so you are allowed 2.4 grams of heroin, fentanyl, crack, meth, and all their toxic additives. And you are allowed to use these toxic drugs in any private residence, indoor shelters, or outdoor encampment. It was not in the too far past that we were actually fitting our
Not down
nurses with
Vancouver,
gas
no.
masks.
They're wide open.
I was told not to call it a gas mask. I was told to call it a full-face respirator with charcoal filter. They were being fitted with those gas masks because they were being exposed to crack, fentanyl, or meth fumes. So in emergency, now we see aberrant behavior because you are high on crack or meth. You come in with drug-induced psychosis or brain injury because of repeated overdoses. I've been an addiction doc for over 20 years. You don't stigmatize against the addict, but you stigmatize against the drug. Doing drugs is not okay. You are injuring yourself and you are injuring the people around you. Most hospitals in BC have a sign posted saying, harassment, threats, or abuse will not be tolerated. BC Nurses Union have been sounding the alarm for months. Government must take immediate action. It's only a matter of time before somebody gets killed. We should have zero tolerance policy for violence against hospital workers. We can't eliminate it completely, but we should be able to dramatically decrease it. We need more trained security officers in our hospitals, especially in high-risk area like ER and psych units. Weapons cannot be allowed in hospital.
Check out this.
Information sharing needs to be streamlined so healthcare workers are immediately aware when a patient has a history of violence. We need to get a handle of substance use. We need to get a handle of the substance use epidemic and start using some common sense strategies. We need to find solutions to staffing issues and decrease the burnout.
I got to just pause this for a second. So if you're listening, this lady is a physician. She's also an addictions doctor, which tells me a few things. She's aligned with the Safe Supply. If she wants a job, she has to be aligned with Safe Supply, which is absolutely the wrong thing. But she has gone on and said some pretty absolutely incredible things. Why is she not the critic for the Conservative Party? Why is this terrorist chick the one that, like, she was homeless on Main and Hastings, being the chief critic of the health system? I don't understand. Anyways, I'm sorry. She's a much better person for that critic position.
And attrition rate of our nurses. So, Honourable Speaker, I want to end by thanking all the nurses and healthcare workers of BC. Many of them are everyday heroes who deserve better from us, who deserve policies that will help keep them safe. Thank you.
100%. All the people with
Thank you,
addictions
member.
get the help.
Recognizing the member for Coquitlam-Millardville.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Every day on March 31st, we celebrate Transgender Day of Visibility here in BC and across the world. Transgender, gender diverse, and two-spirit people are our friends, our family members, our colleagues, and our neighbours. And today we raise them and their voices. This is a wonderful moment to find someone in your community, a craftsperson, a scientist, an activist, a teacher, a worker, a fellow human, and appreciate their journey. Be curious and not judgmental. A long time ago from today, someone who knew utterly and completely who they were,
I'm not trying to be rude,
who stood firmly rooted in themselves, quoted Maya Angelou to me. When people show you who they are, believe them. And I'd always taken it as a warning to trust yourself when someone does wrong by you. But they shone that light right into those words for me, that the world is not just about fear and doubt, but also faith and love. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Transgender Day of Visibility is about celebrating and uplifting the lives of people who have chosen to live their truthful selves despite the harshest of criticism and the most dire of risks.
Serious.
And that's why today we recognize the more than 18,000 British Columbians who identify as transgender, gender diverse, or two-spirit. With a population of 5 million in BC, that's a very small percentage, less than 1%. And it can be easy to miss the vital contributions of such a small segment of our population. So this Day of Recognition was started in 2010 by Rachel Crandall Crocker, who wanted to shift the focus away from violence and the devastating impacts of transphobia on trans people's lives. So today is an opportunity to shine that light on positive stories of the transgender, gender diverse, and two-spirit community.
Yeah,
everyone benefits when we can all.
I'm kind of sorry. I kind of turned the volume off on Jennifer. But I'm in such a tough point in my life because I have to do something about what I've been seeing over the past couple of years, and I know that if I stand up and say things, I'm more than likely going to get blacklisted from something I've been doing for 30 years. So I'm in a really difficult position because I want to say something, my beliefs, my morals, my values, and if I do, I know I'm just going to get blackballed. I'm sorry, I don't understand what trans is. I've tried to understand. I had a client that had a family member that was trans person. Yeah, I don't think I could deal with it. Anyways.
Trans history, and are a reminder that transgender, gender diverse, and two-spirit people have always.
Yeah, two-spirit. We've heard this word two-spirit for hundreds of years in the Aboriginals communities and down in South and Central America.
Has an overview of provincial options for organizations that are doing vital work across this province.
Yeah, there's a place down in South America where they send them. If you're a two-spirited person, you go to this community, and it's a big community for all of them, and they have their own community. They have their own little hospital, doctor, store. They do their own dancing, their own blah blah blah. But I don't think they go to work. They don't go to the factories and work. They don't hang out with the 98% of the population. But this community actually, this country actually gave them a place to be. But you can't go there until you're an adult.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thanks, Rod.
Thank you, member. Recognizing the member for Kamloops North.
Who's this chick? Is she
Speaker? First up, I'd like to appreciate the Forest Minister visiting parts of the Southern Interior BC a couple weeks back. Considering how bad this government has mismanaged the forest industry in this province in just a few years, it was welcome to see him actually in our region.
Whoa.
As a reminder to all in this House, including the Premier, in 2021, we had 55,700 direct jobs in our forest industry. We had a GDP of $5.9 billion.
Let me do this.
We had direct revenue of 1.9. Right direct to our treasury, not to even count the taxes that are paid by the 55,700. But then,
here he comes. He was in the bathroom.
All the thousands of indirects. But then, in 2024, that dropped down to probably 30 to 35,000 jobs. I don't have the GDP numbers, but I know that our revenue was only $501 million, a drop of 75% in less than 4 years. Shocking.
And all the money's going to Europe.
Heard both from the Premier and this Forest Minister that they have guaranteed back as far back as January of 2025 at the TLA convention that they will increase the cutting in this province the harvest level to 45 million cubic meters this year. The last previous year was 32, and back in 21 it was 52.
Did it move to the U.S. or did it
So
was taken
let me ask
over
a
by the
straightforward
US?
question. How exactly is this going to happen? Now, we've heard from the Forest Minister that he was on a listening and learning tour. A tour, mind you, to announce previously announced BC manufacturing job funds in many of our communities. Much needed and appreciated funds to help boost our forest industry. However, Mr. Speaker, these funds were announced in 2024 and November of 2023, way before any tariffs were on the horizon. So my question, Mr. Speaker, is what is the government planning in 2025? We don't see anything specific in the budget. All we do see is a broken promise of that 45 million cubic meters that are supposed to be harvested this year. But unfortunately, the budget says 30. So what is it? 45,
they were in tails
30?
to class.
The numbers don't lie, Madam Speaker.
You're supposed to
So
call
let's
them
look
a
at
cat
those
if they're a
numbers.
cat. That was a couple of years ago. I think that's
This year's
stopped.
budget is being
But if you wanted
projected
to
at
identify
30
as a
million cubic
cat
meters
or a lion or a
for
zebra or a
$635 million
giraffe,
in
you
revenue.
could.
And the only way that's going to
There's
happen
something
is
called
with higher fees.
kindergarten and there's
Now
something
again,
called
the
grade 2.
minister
There's a great
said that
difference
this was his
between the
listening
two.
and learning tour, and this is what I've been hearing, so I'm hoping he's hearing the same thing, that we have the highest cost structure in North America for our timber and our forest products. Highest in North America. So what else did he hear on this tour? This is what I've heard. I've heard that licensees and mills have been told that their timber supply areas are going to be reduced anywhere from 10 to 13% with these new biodiversity standards. Right off the press,
Nice guy.
Madam Speaker, right off the press on February 28th. No consultation with industry, no consultation with stakeholders, no consultation with community members or the
I
public.
saw him last
Only
Thursday
First
at
Nations.
Pierre Pellier.
We have direct changes coming down, unstatutory changes. And yet, with Bill 7, they could turn around and change this and make this into law tomorrow. That is why we have to kill Bill 7. Not bits and pieces of it, all of it.
All of it.
All of it, Madam Speaker.
I must get.
I know time is short. I know time.
I'm sorry, we just had Two-Spirit up, and you can't say the word kill the bill because I might be called Donald Duck, and I'd be offended.
It's an honor to rise today to recognize the beginning of Sikh Heritage Month.
Starting tomorrow on April 1st.
Can you hear now? Sorry.
This month is a time to celebrate the incredible history,
Oopsies.
resilience, and contributions of the Sikh community here in BC and across Canada.
Okay.
Over the weekend, I had the privilege of attending Sikh Heritage Society of BC's opening event, where I was reminded once again of the deep sense of community and commitment to justice that defines Sikhism. It was moving to see people of all backgrounds come together to learn.
So I was with a criminal journalist over the weekend, and he was telling me that he goes to the Surrey court like at least twice a week, and like 80% of the docket is Indian names. I don't know if it's true or not, but there's lots of Indians out there too. But there are communities like it's very traumatizing.
Or background, and that our purpose is to serve humanity. These teachings have guided Sikhs for over 500 years, and they continue to guide us today. The Sikh story in Canada is one of perseverance.
Yeah, the Surrey Courthouse.
Sikhs have been in this country for over 125 years, arriving in the late 1800s to work in industries like forestry, manufacturing,
And now they're coming here to
agriculture.
work at Tim Hortons.
Despite facing racism, discrimination, and exclusion, our community has never given up. We have always fought for our rights, for the right to vote, for the right to belong, and for the right to fully contribute to this country we call home.
You don't have to fight for the right.
Today, Sikh Canadians are leaders in every single sector.
There you go.
Healthcare,
Awesome.
education, business, law enforcement, nonprofits, politics.
Yeah, you guys want to see something
And we
fun?
in Surrey Newton are also home to the largest Vaisakhi parade, or Nagar Kirtan, outside of India, an event that brings together hundreds of thousands of people in celebration of the Sikh community. But the contributions of Sikh Canadians go far beyond any one sector. Sikhism teaches the principle of seva, selfless service. This is why every Gurdwara around the world has a langar, which is a free kitchen that serves meals to anyone in need, regardless of their faith or background.
Yeah, I get
The
it.
service of Sikhs extends far beyond the walls of our Gurdwaras. In times of crisis, Sikhs are often among the first to step up. As seen during the COVID-19 pandemic, Sikh organizations like the Guru Nanak's Food Bank, Guru Nanak's Free Kitchen, and Khalsa Aid mobilized across British Columbia and Canada to deliver food, provide medical supplies, and support those who are most affected. When the BC floods devastated communities, Sikh volunteers worked around the clock to provide shelter, warm meals, and assistance to those who had been displaced. And during some of the worst wildfires in our province's history, Sikh Gurdwaras opened their doors to evacuees, offering food, supplies, and a warm place to stay. But Sikhism teaches us something deeper, that justice is not just for Sikhs, it is for all people. Our gurus taught us that if we see oppression, we must stand and speak out against it, no matter who the victim is. These teachings are not just history, they continue to define how Sikhs engage with the world today. I have seen these values in action firsthand throughout my life. Sikh Canadians have stood on the front lines of labor movements, fighting for fair wages and better working conditions for all workers. Sikhs have spoken out against racism and discrimination, standing in solidarity with Indigenous, Black, and other marginalized communities. And Sikhs have fought against Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and all forms of hate, recognizing that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Sikh Heritage Month is not just a time to reflect on the past, it's a time to shape the future. We must commit to fighting hate and intolerance, recognizing that many racialized communities, including the Sikh community, continue to face discrimination today. And we must continue to live our values, to serve, to uplift others, and to always stand up for what is right.
Are you ready?
As I stand in this house today, I do so with immense pride, not just in my own Sikh identity, but in the contribution of Sikhs across this province and across our country. Sikhism is more than a faith. It is a call to action, a commitment to justice, and a way of life that seeks to build a more equal, inclusive, and compassionate world. To all those celebrating, and to all those taking the time to learn and engage, happy Sikh Heritage Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. And just a reminder to all members, the opportunity to discuss and debate bills before the House are at different times, but not during private members' time. And recognizing the member for Langley-Willowbrook.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today I want to take a moment to highlight the invaluable roles that organizations like the Langley Senior Resource Society, or LSRS, play in our community. Founded in 1982, this nonprofit organization has been the forefront of enhancing the quality of life for seniors and adults aged 50 and older in the city and township of Langley. As we all know, our population is aging, and with that comes the increasing need for dedicated resources and support systems for our seniors. The importance of centers like LSRS cannot be overstated, and I'd like to share several key reasons why they're essential. First and foremost, social connection. One of the challenges faced by seniors today is social isolation. Many older adults find themselves disconnected from their peers and communities, which can lead to feelings of loneliness and depression. LSRS provides a welcoming and
Okay, so what happened is they moved all the old people into old age homes in the 80s. That's when it started, 70s, 80s, 90s. By the 2000s, that was a massive business.
Next, let's talk about the recreational opportunities that they have. Engaging in recreational activities is vital for maintaining physical health and mobility. At LSRS, seniors can take part in fitness classes, arts and crafts, and group outings. These activities are dedicated not to only promote physical health, but also stimulating brain function and creativity. In essence, they help our seniors stay active and engaged, which is fundamental for fulfilling life. Another important aspect is lifelong learning. Centers like LSRS offer a wide range of educational programs that enable seniors to expand their knowledge and skills, from technology training to health and wellness workshops. These classes ensure that seniors remain informed and engaged with the world around them. Lifelong learning is not just a pursuit, but it's a way to maintain a vibrant and active mind. Help and support services are also critical as individuals age. LSRS provides tailored health services that respond to the unique needs of seniors. This includes wellness programs, nutritional guidance, and access to essential healthcare resources by helping seniors manage their health. More effectively, LSRS enables them to maintain their independence for as long as possible. Speaking of health, nutrition support cannot be overlooked. Proper nutrition is vital for maintaining health, especially for older adults who may have dietary needs. LSRS ensures that seniors have access to balanced meals, which can impact their overall well-being. Beyond the nutritional aspect, community meals serve as a wonderful opportunity for social gatherings, reinforcing the bonds within our community. For caregivers, LSRS also offers adult day programs that provides a safe and engaging environment for seniors during the day. Finding trusted care for loved ones can be a daunting task, and these programs offer caregivers while providing structured activities and socialized opportunities for seniors. This dual benefit cannot be underestimated. Finally, let's not forget about the community engagement. LSRS fosters a sense of community by bringing together seniors from diverse backgrounds. This inclusive promotes understanding, respect, and collaboration among different generations. Moreover, it encourages volunteer activities, participate in community events, and enriching the community as a whole. In conclusion, the Langley Senior Resource Society demonstrates the importance of having dedicated centers for our seniors by offering social, recreational, and educational programs, as well as health and support services. LSRS plays a crucial role in enhancing the lives of older adults in the Langley area. These centers empower seniors to lead fulfilling lives while strengthening the fabric of our community. As our population continues to age, the need for these invaluable resources will only grow. It is very important that we support and sustain organizations like LSRS, ensuring that our seniors receive the care, connection, and community they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, member. Recognizing the member for Burnaby South Metrotown.
Honourable Speaker, as MLA for Burnaby South Metrotown and Parliamentary Secretary for Pacific Asia Trade, I have firsthand seen the remarkable spirit of collaboration that defines our city's entrepreneur landscape. Burnaby is home to several dynamic business organizations, each dedicated to fostering local commerce, community engagement, and sustainable growth. So today, I want to highlight three such organizations: the Burnaby Board of Trade, the Burnaby North Road Business Improvement Association, and the Heights
So I
Merchants
guess what they're doing here is
Association.
they're just talking about how
So at the
there are
forefront
societies that
of
they're
local
attached
business
to.
advocacy is the Burnaby Board of Trade, uniting
I know what
diverse
happens
sectors
here.
under
Listen,
one
so this is what
umbrella.
happens
And
here,
I
you ready?
personally
So these people are getting up to talk about societies that they're attached to that donate big money, and they're getting recognized in the courts and the law, blah, blah, blah. This is exactly what's happening. I didn't understand it earlier, but I do understand it now. because I do know organizations that donate money to certain political groups, and then all of a sudden they're invited over to the place, and they're sitting upstairs in the blah, 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 and they get to, blah, blah, blah.
Inclusivity, and global outreach. By championing programs like the Burnaby Business Excellence Awards and forging ties with international markets, the BBOT boosts our city's standing as an innovative place to invest and grow. And this ongoing advocacy ensures that Burnaby businesses stay competitive and well supported. For BIA, spanning a culturally diverse corridor near Burnaby's Lougheed Mall, the Burnaby North Road Business Improvement Association celebrates a rich tapestry of global influence. Known affectionately as Koreatown, the district is home to shops, restaurants, and services that reflect the neighborhood's multinational character. And I've also been involved in BIA for the last 7 years as directors and last 3 years as the president.
BI?
Under current Executive Director June Park and President Calvin Lee, the North Road BIA brings the area to life through marketing campaigns, beautification projects, and festive events. June's leadership fosters cohesion among local entrepreneurs, spotlighting the unique heritage that sets North Road apart.
Oh, what just happened?
Street fairs and cultural festivals draw visitors from across the region, boosting economic activities and showcasing Burnaby's multicultural roots. And by enhancing infrastructure and encouraging collaboration, the North Road BIA creates a warm environment for both long-standing residents and first-time guests.
Well, thank you very much.
Another cornerstone of Burnaby's commercial tapestry is the Heights Merchants Association, commonly called the Heights BIA. Stretching along Hastings Street, this historical district combines small town charm with urban amenities. Executive Director Isabel Korlick leads the association in preserving the area's character while promoting new business ventures. So community events, including popular car shows and seasonal celebration, infuse Hastings Street with energy and draws visitors who support local shops and restaurants. Through coordinated marketing and networking, the Heights Merchants Association safeguards the Heights' proud heritage while allowing modern growth. And as a result, the district remains a lively destination that thrives on both tradition and innovation. And as these organizations share more than geographic proximity, they share a dedication to building thriving, inclusive neighborhoods. Their efforts extend beyond commerce as each one invests in programs and events that uplift families, celebrate cultural diversity, and reinforces a tie between business and the broader community. So looking ahead, the Burnaby Board of Trade and Burnaby North Road BIA and the Heights Merchants Association will continue shaping our city's future. And their emphasis on sustainability, innovation, and respect for heritage ensures that Burnaby remains a desired place to live, work, and invest. So I encourage everyone, residents, visitors, and prospective entrepreneurs to explore these unique commercial districts. Each reflects a distinct blend of tradition, culture, and progress that sets Burnaby apart. By supporting local businesses, attending neighborhoods events, and encouraging with these organizations, we can all contribute to Burnaby's ongoing success. So in celebrating these achievements, let us look into the future of optimism. Though the dedication of business leaders and residents alike, our city continues to flourish, offering a bright future for generations to come. Thank you, Speaker.
No one's in the room.
Thank you, member. Honourable members, according to the order paper, we will look to the member for Surrey Cloverdale to move second reading of Bill number M205, the Mental Health Amendment Act 2025. Member for Surrey Cloverdale.
Thank you, Speaker. I move that the bill be read a second time now. Honourable Speaker, the Mental Health Amendment Act 2025, if passed, is a piece of legislation that could help save lives. This bill aims to improve communication between close relatives and doctors and nurse practitioners during a mental health crisis where a person has been apprehended under the Mental Health Act. And also when they're released from a designated facility under Section 34 of the Mental Health Act. This bill aims to fix a critical gap in our mental health system by ensuring that doctors and nurse practitioners have the information that they need to make informed decisions about involuntary admissions. It's a simple idea, really, Madam Speaker, require medical professionals to reach out to those who know a person best before deciding whether to certify or to release someone in crisis. It's a simple change, but it really could mean the difference between life and death. The truth is, Honourable Speaker, that it's very emotional for me. I've been working on these changes since 2009. Because in 2009, when I was an RCMP officer with Langley RCMP, I was witness to a suicide of a young man named Todd Marr. Todd had gone to the hospital in distress with suicidal thoughts, but they released him. His mom, Lorraine, had picked him up, and she knew that he was at risk because he had tried to take his life the day before. But the hospital didn't ask her for critical context before releasing him, and shortly after Todd was released, he ran from his mom's car into traffic and died. Excuse me. I was at the scene, and it's a moment that's haunted me ever since. And that's what drives me to push for this bill. Madam Speaker, if the doctor had spoken to Lorraine and heard about Todd's recent attempt, would the outcome have been different? We don't know for sure. We don't. But what we do know is that Lorraine wasn't given a chance to speak. The bill would have changed that, making sure families like the Marrs aren't silenced. I anticipate that there'll be members of government who might respond to this legislation and report that doctors and nurse practitioners already have this ability.
They do.
And it's true that there are some provisions within guidance for practitioners, and there are forms within the Mental Health Act itself that do facilitate some communication with close relatives. But as confirmed by the 2022 update to the Ombudsman's report on involuntary care in BC entitled Committed to Change, these forms were only completed 28% of the time. The Ombudsman's report also made several recommendations, some of those completed, some ongoing, and some still incomplete. And one of those incomplete ones is a change to Section 34. So Section 34 is also in Bill 205 and amendments, and I would like to encourage this House to advance the bill so that we can look at implementing that recommendation from the Ombudsman as well. In addition to the Ombudsman's report, there have been multiple coroner's inquest recommendations to improve communication with close relatives during a mental health crisis. One tragic example of this is in 2019 when Vancouver Police Constable Nicole Chan took her own life, just hours after being released from Vancouver General Hospital's Access and Assessment Centre. She'd been brought in under the Mental Health Act in obvious distress with a history of suicidal thoughts. Her fellow officers had pleaded with the hospital to keep her, but just 80 minutes afterwards, she was sent home. The coroner's inquest into her death concluded in 2023, and it laid bare the failures in communication that contributed to this tragedy. The jury made 12 recommendations. One of those most critical was improving communication, including speaking to those who know the patient best. The Mental Health Amendments Act of 2025, Bill 205, directly addresses these recommendations. It mandates that physicians or nurse practitioners make reasonable efforts to gather additional context about a person's psychological history before making a decision about certification or release. The second amendment in this bill addresses the notification of a close relative of a person who's already been certified and treated. Currently, the close relative is to be informed after the patient is released, and this amendment would change so that notice is given prior to their release. On February 9th, 2023, James Zimmer took his own life within hours of being discharged from Royal Jubilee Hospital in Victoria. His sister, who had been supporting her brother during his mental health challenges, had been receiving updates from doctors. However, she wasn't informed of his release and only learned he was out of care when police showed up at her door to tell her her brother had taken his own life. And then there's Aaron Sanyo. His story echoes the same pain. Aaron was admitted to Lionsgate Hospital in North Vancouver, struggling with mental illness and a history of suicide attempts. His family called the hospital repeatedly, desperate to share what they knew, but they weren't able to get through to anyone directly involved in his care. They weren't told when he was released, and shortly after, Aaron took his own life. His sister Kayla felt like, quote, the door is shut in our faces, end quote. The Ombudsman's report could have been written about Aaron's case. Families excluded, communication stalled, and tragic outcomes. Bill 205 would force that door open, ensuring families like Aaron's get a voice and not just a busy signal. This bill doesn't only align with the coroner's inquest for better communication, but it puts it into action, ensuring that no one slips through the cracks because of a lack of context. So let's widen that lens. In 2022, the Ombudsman released his report titled Committed to Change, Examining Involuntary Care, and it found systemic issues, including a lack of transparency and poor communications. The report highlighted cases where loved ones were left in the dark, unable to share vital information about a person's condition or history. It's not just a bureaucratic oversight, it's a barrier to effective care. These changes would ensure that families do have an opportunity to provide that information. Nicole Chan's inquest showed us the cost of silence. The Ombudsman's report laid out the stakes of exclusion. And the stories of Todd Marr and Aaron Sanyo and James Zimmer remind us that human lives are behind these failures. This bill isn't just a policy tweak, it's a promise for all of us to do better. It's a promise to Nicole's sister Jen, who stood by me in the legislature, tears in her eyes, asking us for change. And it's a promise to Aaron's family, who deserve to be heard. It's a promise to Lorraine Marr, who hugged me before this bill was introduced the first time in 2023. This isn't about politics, it's about people. Private members' bills rarely pass. But this one, please do not let it be another casualty of a partisan gridlock. The Premier said he's open to improving information for physicians in these tough decisions, and we have a chance to come together to turn recommendations into reality to make sure that the next Nicole, Todd, James, or Aaron get the care that they need. Let's honor their memory, not with more reports and regrets, but with action. Please pass this bill, make it law, and save lives. Thank you.
Thank you, member. Recognizing the member for Surrey City Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am pleased to rise today to speak to this bill, and I want to appreciate the member opposite for sharing some of those heartbreaking stories and accounts of challenges that individuals face
Emma.
And their families and their loved ones as well in the event of mental health crises. This bill proposes to amend the Mental Health Act to require healthcare providers to consult with near relatives
All right,
of
my
individuals
friends,
when they're being admitted.
I've had enough. I've got to go. I've got to get ready. I've got some. I got a court appearance and blah 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 blah. Have a beautiful day. We will see you another day.